Now, for global business updates, Rotus Odiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Ayo. Happy belated birthday to you. I saw you giving a boost to Nigeria's fashion industry with your incredible pictures on Instagram. Happy birthday.
So much.
We need to revive the textile industry.
Yes, we do.
So we can get more of those clothes out. Rufai, good morning to you.
How's it going, my friend?
Good morning to all our viewers out there. We start with oil. With respect to Saudi Arabia cutting its official selling price to Asia. Now, this is because of price pressures, a number of triggers that have been facing oil weakness now. So if we take a look at the triggers for oil weakness now, we are seeing, one, rising inventories. According to official data for, I think it was a Reuters survey, OPEC inventories have actually, in fact, have been rising. Even in the United States, crude oil inventories have been rising in the United States, which suggests lower demand if your inventories are going up. You've got higher OPEC, non-OPEC production numbers. I think they increased by about 70,000 barrels per day in December. That's the amount of output that we have. And then, of course, Saudi Arabia cutting its official selling price to Asia. So these have combined to give you weaker oil prices as we start the year. Now, on the flip side of that, we've got a trigger for oil price strength, which is geopolitical concerns. So Anthony Blinken, of course, U.S. Secretary of State, I think he's in Israel this morning. He plans to go to the UAE. He's meeting with a number of regional folks in that area to try to calm tensions down. You've seen what's been going on in the Red Sea with those, Houthis attacking vessels, Maersk stopping its shipping, freight costs have gone up. So this is a trigger for oil price strength. So you've got a bull case for oil and a bear case for oil. We move on from oil and go on to the United States. The big news that broke late last night. In Congress, they work on weekends. They work on weekends in the in the U.S. Congress. So they got a deal for spending to about 1.6 trillion, approximately 1.6 trillion. This is the spending deal. Now, there's still a lot that has to be done here in terms of the appropriation bills, about 12 of them, that will be able to get this money over the line. Of course, the back and forth. Republicans say that, in fact, the Freedom Caucus, which is one minute right-wing caucus in the Republican side, said that this is actually higher than what is here. Republicans are trying to reduce spending. Democrats want to spend more. This gives them about 2 weeks to avoid a government shutdown because there's still areas of government that need to be funded. So they're still working things out. There's still a long way to go, but at least they've reached a deal to try to avert a government shutdown. So that's what's happening there. Remember, we talked about jobs in the United States, and non-farm payrolls beats expectations. I mean, it came in at 216,000. Remember, we were saying that the forecast was between 170 to 175,000. November was revised downwards by about 40,000 from about 190 something to 173. And essentially, what this means now is that, average wage growth in the United States is going up, meaning that even wage inflation is going up. So Americans still have money. You saw that 222 billion that was spent in online shopping from November to December. So Americans are still spending and jobs are still healthy. The U.S. labor market is still strong. So that means that the Federal Reserve may not be so quick to cut rates when it meets for the first time this year. So that's non-farm payrolls. If we look at unemployment rates, I think about 3.7%. Is where we are for unemployment in the United States. That was unchanged. The forecast was for it to climb to 3.8%. So the U.S. labor market, the gist here, the U.S. labor market is still strong. From there, I think we're going to go to the Alaska Airlines. We should have a video of an Alaska Airlines, I think it's a Boeing 737 MAX 9 aircraft, where the door blew off the fuselage while it was in mid-flight. The flight was going from, I believe it was going from Ontario, Oregon. It was going from Oregon to California, and there was a viral video on TikTok. I think you can see it there, where the door blew off. I mean, the airline was about, I think, 16,000 feet in the air when it was flying at the altitude. It was a harrowing experience for everybody that was on there. You remember all the issues that the Boeing 737 MAX has had. So now this has now led to the Federal Aviation Authority, the FAA, in the United States, they essentially, this was on Saturday morning when this happened. So the FAA, the regulator, quickly jumped in. They grounded 737 MAX 9 planes. Even Alaska Airlines grounded its fleet, and a number of other global airlines have followed. So, and I think there should be a meeting that's going to be taking place with Boeing. So the emergency landing happened on Saturday. FAA ordered the grounding of 737 MAX 9 planes. Alaska Airlines grounded its fleet, leading to a number of flights being canceled. A number of airlines around the world have followed. Boeing is scheduling a meeting today. So that's the aviation sector in the United States. We now come to the aviation sector in Nigeria. The central bank put out a press release. It was confirmed, I believe on Friday with journalists, that they've disbursed another $61.6 million to address the FX backlog for airlines. This was distributed through the banks. You know, the CBN has been trying to, bring down its forward obligations, bring down the backlog. But there's still a long way to go. Remember when Arise News, we were in Abidjan, all right, for the Africa CEO Forum. We talked about the backlog, the FX backlog, what is owed to airlines. And if we take a look at the top 5, according to IATA, Nigeria still leads the way. So Nigeria at 812 million. I mean, this number would have come down since then, just a tad, but we're still about, I mean, if we deduct what's been paid so far, we are still probably about in the 700 million region. You've got Bangladesh in second place, Algeria, Pakistan, and Lebanon, as far as the nations that have the highest FX backlog. So that's what the CBN is working. The CBN is doing what it can to try to make those payments to bring down the FX backlog. We move on from there in aviation now to, I believe, still sticking in Nigeria, I think the Dangote refinery, an update on the 5th crude cargo supply that was received, I think on Friday when we broke the news. We've been tracking this as it's been going on. They're expecting their 6th cargo of at least 1 million barrels per day for the refinery. So that is continuing. Of course, in line with getting, by mid-January, at least diesel, A1 and so on being produced at the refinery. Also, on another matter, the EFCC, the Dangote Group did release a statement on, I think it was Friday or Saturday, I believe, where they gave some clarity on the issues, the EFCC visit, right? Economic Financial Crimes Commission. So here's what the Dangote Group said. They said they were not given enough time to provide that 10-year data on the FX transactions that they got from the CBN. But still, even though the Dangote, and they asked for more time, they said the EFCC should give them more time. The EFCC, according to the Dangote Group statement, the EFCC did not give them enough time. But they still managed to put the data together and they still sent it over to the EFCC. Apparently, the EFCC was not satisfied with the data and they ended up visiting their offices. So that's the Dangote Group statement officially on what, at least on their side, what happened with the EFCC. I think finally we'll close with PMS. Somebody tagged me on Twitter and said, don't let Roto see this data, but I'll see it. Shout out to all our Twitter followers that follow at Arise TV on Twitter and Arise News Official, Instagram, all the Arise social media channels. So they tagged me and said, Roto should not see this data. Well, I saw it. So, I think it was the global petrol prices put out this report saying that Nigeria still is ranked 22nd when it comes to the cheapest fuel. Now, remember, I think we're in the top 3 before fuel subsidies were removed. Even after fuel subsidies are removed, we're still in the top 22 in the world as far as the cheapest fuel. So they put out, I just said, let me play around with some math just for you folks out there to know where fuel should be priced at. So they said the global average PMS price, global average, is $1.29, right? If you take that $1.29 at where the NAFEM rates closed on Friday, that's the autonomous foreign exchange market, it was $8.95, right? 895 naira per dollar. You multiply that, fuel comes out to 1,154 naira per liter using the NAFEM rates. Because for now, until the Dangote refinery, Port Harcourt refinery, all these other refineries come on stream, we're still importing. So your biggest trigger is still the exchange rates, right? So but if you use the parallel market rates at 1,200, you will be paying 1,548 naira per liter. That is our updates for today.
I mean, Rotus, that's why we've always called on the government to be transparent. We just want this government to let us know. I mean, are they paying subsidy? How much are they paying in subsidy to subsidize that product? Secondly, will be about, and I would say kudos to the CBN this morning, as regards those block funds that they've released, some of them about $61 million. You know, it's quite sad that when you look at the other nations that are owing airline money, our nations that are near bankruptcy, look at Lebanon, look at, you know, countries, you know, that are way down on the pecking order, Pakistan, you know, that their reserves were about how much left? About $4 or $5 billion, you know. Those are the countries we're in the same frame with. That's why a lot more needs to be done. But as regards America, I see the good thing coming up as regards the job numbers. Yes, Joe Biden keeps blowing out all the targets. But the reality on ground is people do not really want it. And it's not doing well in the polls. And that's why I say to a large extent, yes, U.S. non-farm payroll numbers are up to 16,000 as regards the Ethel projection, which is an indication that the economy is doing well. There's a lot more productivity in the economy. People are getting jobs. But the reality on ground as regards the electoral cycle is that people feel Joe Biden is old and Donald Trump appears to be ticking all the right boxes. And that's why I'm still standing on my prediction that Donald Trump, you know, might win. And for Boeing, I think they should watch it, really. We all remember the Ethiopian airline incident just a couple of years ago that led to the death of some people very dear to us here, you know, in the studio. And all that has constantly happened as regards, you know, Boeing and their jets. I think it doesn't speak well for them. There should be a holistic investigation which has been on. And just to give you further information, so they finally found the door that opened up from the fuselage. They found it in one little locality just this morning. I was seeing it on the news. But it's quite very sad that this increasingly happens to Boeing, and it might just make or mar Boeing's prospects. And if there's any other thing that we need to know, truly, then we need to know. Concerning the Dangote group, I'm a little bit iffy. Could the EFCC have done it without making a lot of noise? Because you see, we do not quantify the reputational damage it has to companies. Yes, if you ask for data, they were not satisfied with the data. Can they have been invited? Can they do it in other way, shape, or form? Must there have to be noise about it? Yes, it was not the EFCC that reported themselves, but their presence there alone. Could they have still have invited them? So those are the questions we keep asking, because take it or leave it, Dangote is one of the biggest conglomerates in this country. And it also affects your drive for investors, because if a foreign investor sees the way one of your biggest conglomerates is being treated by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, then it speaks volumes as regards, you know, how they will be treated to in the country. So this thing is constantly about optics. And I thought you were going to talk about the humanitarian minister, because that's a very big business story also, you know, Rotus, and the fact that we should do things well, you know, as regards procurement procedures and things like that. Probably maybe at the end of today, maybe I'll just send 500 million, over 500 million naira to your bank account, Rotus. How about that? To help to disburse.
Oh, they'll investigate us, but I'll accept it, but they will be investigated.
Curtis, how can you admit that you're going to accept it? As a good, upstanding citizen, you say no, you'd return it. You would report such an infraction. But let me talk about Boeing this morning. And I'm proved. And I speak about Boeing Mark 737 because a number of things, and I believe some lessons learned there as well. They've been under fire since, like I had mentioned, in 2019, but even before then, in 2018, off the shores of Indonesia, they lost another aircraft, which was quite similar to what happened in 2019 with the Addis Ababa one. So, of course, there are huge concerns around that. When you talk about stocks in Frankfurt, on the Frankfurt exchange, they've lost 8% in terms of their stocks have gone down 8%, and one of their biggest rival, Airbus, on TradeGate, have gained by 2%. So you can already begin to see the impact on their stock, at least in certain places, after following that FAA grounding. But, you know, a few positives there. Some people, analysts, having looked at the situation, have said that the fact that this occurred just a few minutes after takeoff was a big saving grace for the passengers on the plane, because out of 177, all of them thankfully were safe. Unlike what happened with the Indonesian one and the Addis Ababa one, where unfortunately over 300 passengers lost their lives collectively. Now, they also talked about air pressure, and very important was they had said that the pilot had actually raised alarm on the pressure on the previous flights taken on that plane. And so these were certain things that perhaps they didn't even look into. And I say this because we accuse our local airlines of, sometimes similar things whereby there are a few indicators that there might be trouble with the aircraft, but unfortunately nothing is being done. But it's good to see swift action taken by the FAA to ground the flight, and I don't know what would happen, following the investigations. Of course, the media people at Boeing are trying to play it down and saying that it has nothing to do with the efficiency of their aircraft. But I'd like to see how this will play out on their stocks, not just in Frankfurt, but also in the US and other major exchanges around the world. It'd be interesting to see if it would reduce investor confidence as well, or shareholders' confidence in terms of the airline. Well, thank you very much, Reuters, for your time this morning.